All right, so any questions on what we were talking in the last session? If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask me. If not, we will continue with today's topic. I think we saw about the transformations, platform transformations to be more precise. We were talking about query transformation in the last session, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and shoot your questions. Alright, so we were talking about the query transformation, and guys, I guess you guys can hear and see my screen, right? Just making sure because I don't get any response from you. Okay, yeah, that's good, thank you. Alright, in the query transformation, we saw how to join two different tables using a where clause, and how does the system do a proposed join when you have two common fields on two tables, the same common field present on the two tables using primary and foreign key relation. And we saw all the options that we have on the schema in, and we also saw most of the options that are in the schema out, some of the options that were left out because we are trying to we will look at them in different scenario where we will come across XML related data or nested data or NRDM schemas. We'll look at the remaining options there. So as of now, we are looking at the flat structures. So we are proceeding with the flat structures as of now. So we are looking at the options that we have in the schema out and schema in related to the flat structures. Alright, so let us proceed with the mapping tab. So if you look at the bottom of this one, this is divided into 4 plus 4, 8 tabs, right? So in the previous version, you used to have 9 tabs. In 3x, you used to have 9 tabs where right after from and before where you used to have one more tab called as an outer where exactly you can go and create an outer join, right? So that's the screen difference from 3x to 4x. Guys, request to you to be on mute. Alright, so if you have any questions, please let me know. I guess like HTML user 5 has errored twice, so just kept one user on mute. If you have any questions, you can just ping me on the chat so that I can unmute you. So now, let us look at these tabs that we have at the bottom of the screen, starting from mapping. So mapping defines how the column in the schema out is mapped from schema in. So if you are doing a one-to-one mapping, you select the column on the schema out and it will show you to which column it is mapped. Similarly, go and select another column. It will show how it is mapped and it will also give you the description. Not only just highlighting the column, but in the mapping tab you can see a description how it is mapped. Now, let us say for unit price, you want to define a condition. So generally what we will do is we'll go ahead and delete this one and create a mapping, but as a best practice, don't do that. So I recommend you always comment existing mappings by putting a hash symbol before that, and then now you got to do some calculation on that. So select quantity, drag and drop into the mapping tab, then use an asterisk to multiply and say unit price. So for the unit price, I'm not directly populating with whatever unit price is coming in from the source, but I'm doing a calculation, right? So this is something like a calculated key figure that we are trying to create on the schema out, so that every time when we run this job, so instead of getting the data directly from the source, whatever your source is feeding to you, it will take some calculation. So this is how you translate the data, right? On a very simple note, we are talking about quantity into price, right? And further, you can go and look at one more thing like employee ID. As of now, it is mapped to employee ID. So I will just comment this one, go to the next line, because if you put a hash symbol before anything, the system will ignore that line. So let us say employee number is a concatenation of EMP and the employee ID. So let us say a customer is asking us to have a prefix of EMP. Alright, so you can give the value like this. So whenever you are passing, not passing a direct value, and whenever you are trying to do some calculation or add some additional value to that column. Now one thing you can say is if you are trying to populate this column from two different columns, both the columns will be selected. Or if you are trying to enhance the data by some text or some other values like that, you will see a double arrow on both the cases, right? So this will actually tell you that this value is not directly coming in from the source, but this is getting enriched. So the right terminology that we use here is enriching the data, right? Or applying the business rules. So whenever you do something, or to put it in this way, if you want to apply a business rule, you can do that only in query transformation, right? So we have seen two cases. One is you do a calculation or derive this output column by multiplying two input columns, and make sure that you don't multiply something with a varchar and a decimal, or varchar and an integer, because the system will get confused, because varchar is a character. So just make sure when you are applying an asterisk symbol, you just apply on integers or decimals. And in this case, we are trying to enhance or concatenate EMP word to the employee number. Sorry guys, I have a bad throat. Alright, so this is one more scenario, and let us say there is a requirement saying that the region, right? So we generally have some region data. So now, or discount. So let us say they want discount to be as 1% for everybody, right? So you don't want to change the values here, right? You don't want anything coming in from the source because it is some Christmas season or some discount season. They want to give a fixed discount to the customers, so you can keep it as 5. All right, so that will be a hard coding, right? So you want to hard code some columns, you can pass directly the value within a query transformation. So let us say I want to hard code this city to North Carolina. So what I will do is I'll comment the existing one, and in single quotes I'll give North Carolina. Alright, so did you notice any difference when I'm trying to do it for a real value or an integer value? I just gave the value 5, but when I'm trying to do it for a varchar, I'm passing it through single quotes. So just remember, when you are trying to do some business rules, right, almost like 30 to 40% of your rules will error out because you're not passing the right value to the column. If your column is a varchar, make sure you pass values within those single quotes. And if it is an integer, decimal, or real, right, so you can just pass the value directly, right? So we have seen calculations, right? We have seen enhancing or prefix. We have seen how to populate the column with a function. So generate row number is a function. Then we have seen how to hard code the values for varchar columns and how to hard code the values for numeric columns, right? So if you want to do additional activities, so let us say the region is null and your target system is not able to take any null values. So in this case, you can write an if then else statement or a decode statement. So you just type decode and it will show you the function, and press enter and put your mouse on this one. It will show you the syntax as well, how to write your decode. So these are simple SQL statements that we will learn as a Satyaraj, I guess the recording is done on a daily basis and you will get these recorded sessions. Okay, so you're trying to write a decode statement, right? So the syntax is, if your region, select the column, region, drag and drop it, and just make sure that you are writing on the region column itself, right? In the mapping tab, if your region is null, then pass XYZ to it, and if it is not null, then get the region directly as it is coming from the source. So what will happen with this decode? So whatever the value that is coming in from the source will still remain the same, and whenever there is a null, instead of showing null to the target system, it will, or target table in this case, it will show a value XYZ. So generally when it is an SAP system, we keep it as a / because the SAP systems will not accept null, or some of the Oracle systems will not accept null, so we keep them as a /, right? So you can write a decode statement as well, right? So what we can do, we can prefix, we can calculate, we can decode, we can hard code, right? We can do everything within your query transformation, right? So you can pass a decode statement or if then else statement, right? So if you want to write, you just need to type if then else, and then you put your mouse pointer on this one and it will give you the syntax like how this if then else will work. So if then else, in brackets you pass a conditional expression, and if that is true, what is that one, and if it is not true, and it goes to the else part and you have to give the else expression, right? So you can pass something like this: if ship via is equal to, it's an integer, so you can just keep it in single quotes. If it is 1, comma, A, else B, right? So you can just pass the syntaxes like this so that you can you can just pass the syntaxes. So it's a very simple thing, or the most complex thing that you will end up doing in data services is writing this if then else statements for a particular columns where you want to enrich the values, right? So this is very simple, and this is the fundamentals of SQL. So you can write an if then else statement, or if you want to comment this one, and if you want to keep a decode, you can just uncomment this. Right. So these are the various things that we can do on the schema out columns with the help of the mapping tab, right? So let us say the product ID has some preceding spaces and succeeding spaces. You want to trim the spaces. What you can do is ltrim underscore blanks and rtrim underscore blanks on this material ID or on this product ID, and here you have two open braces, so just make sure that you are closing it twice, right, with two brackets, and that will remove the preceding and succeeding spaces on the product ID. So this ltrim and rtrim blanks you generally use when you are getting the data from a flat file, because flat file generally will push some leading and trailing spaces on the data. So if you want to look at all the functions that you have, probably we will cover most of that, but we will not be covering each and everything because I just want to leave some window for you guys to practice. So these are the functions like average, count, count distinct, right, maximum, minimum, sum, then conversion functions like interval to varchar, varchar to interval, number to interval, then cryptographic functions, then custom functions, database functions, date functions. We'll see some of the date functions, environment functions we'll see. So I'll try to cover most of the functions here as we proceed in different scenarios. But yeah, when you practice, I recommend you to go with each and every function, try out what is that you need to pass for the function and how is this function returning a value. Because if you look at the function, the basic definition of a function says that when you pass an input or a parameter to a function, it will return a value, right? So how you want to utilize, where you want to utilize, that is up to you. Right, so we will look at most of the functions going forward in scenarios. You have math, you have miscellaneous, you can have some of the SAP functions, string functions, system and validation functions. Alright, so you just need to call them as per your requirement. So if you have something to trim spaces, right, so you just go to functions and check for some miscellaneous functions where you will have some ltrim and rtrim blanks or database version, database owner, name of the database, or what is the name of the data flow, right? And current configuration, to which data store configuration it is set to. Then get the job name, get the job run ID, list functions, NVL functions. You can utilize multiple functions. There are pre-built functions. There is no need for you to rewrite them again. So the reason why I'm talking about the functions right now is you can call these functions in your mapping tab on a column, so that this column value will be an input parameter for that function, and that function will return a value to you, right? So these are the things that you find in the mapping tab. The second tab that you see here is select, right? So let us say you know that in your input table or input file you have duplicate records, right? So when I say duplicate, it is an exact duplicate. So there are two types of duplicates that we generally have. So if this is my employee table, so I'll have employee number, name, salary, and designation. So I'm just taking some example. So if the same record is present across the table multiple times, right? So when you run a query, what the system will do in the backend, so it will go and take an image of this and it tries to compare with each and every row, and if it finds the exact duplicates or if the same record is present in the table again and again, it will consider that as a duplicate. So if you want to select distinct records, so what is the query that we go and write on the SQL side? Select distinct star from table name. So it will give you all the distinct records. So this is how it works in the backend. It will go and check if the same record is present in the table multiple times, then it will go and remove that record and give you only one record out of it. Now, if you have some data like this, right, and you try to compare the image of first row with the second row and the third row, all the rows are completely different, right? So this is different to this is different to this, and this is different to this, right? Then the system cannot identify these kind of duplicates, so these are called potential duplicates. So we will see how do we handle the potential duplicates using data services a little later, but as of now, to start with, if you have exact duplicates from the data, you just need to check this distinct rows checkbox to make sure that you get distinct records to the schema out or to the target table. So this will select. So select will allow you to select distinct records from the table. The next tab that you see is the From tab. So this From tab defines from how many source table you are trying to get the data. Right, it will tell you how many tables are present in your input schema, and from, so let us say in future I just want to ignore this link, right, and I want to just comment the join condition. So instead of deleting this and doing some changes to the job, you can just uncheck from the tab order details, and you can just remove this one, and also wherever you map in the schema out, just comment that and keep that to null, so you can ignore this. So this is where we select and deselect, right? So when I select, so it is saying that from orders and order detail table, but when I deselect, it says only from the orders table, right? And join will talk about it once we talk about the cache. So what kind of cache that you are utilizing? You want to utilize the cache? Yes. So it will allot a default space for your job to run. And then if you say no, when you're especially running on less volume of data and you don't want it to go through your cache, you'll keep it no. But by default, you keep it automatic, because the system will decide if your activity, whatever you are trying to do, let it be joining tables or applying business rules or whatever it is, based on your input volume. So the system will automatically decide whether you want to utilize the cache or not. Right. So whenever you find this, you better keep it to automatic so that the performance will be good. And join ranks. Right. So when I look at this diagram that is there, so I'm joining two tables, right? Table A and table B, orders and order details. Now, when I execute this one, so go to validation and look at display optimized SQL. This provides you the optimized SQL for this entire data flow. So what exactly the SQL code that is written there. Now you want to tell the system to choose orders first and order details a little later, right? When you execute, you want your pointer to go to this one first and then to this one, right? So you will give a priority to the table. That is what we call as a rank. So I'll give this order details rank 10 and order details orders as 5. So 5 being on the top rank. So when you execute, you're telling the system to go and pick orders first and then go for the details. So that is again specific to your requirement. So if you have such requirements that you have to, go and pick this one first and then go to the second table, or not only between the tables, but if you are using different transformations before query, so you want to prioritize one transformation first and then go for the second, then you can utilize this join ranks in those scenarios to improve your performance. But if you don't specify any, don't worry, the system will take care of this one based on the valid SQL that it is generating. So that is about the join ranks. Now going to the next block here, right? So there are few options like left, join type, right, and join condition. Now if you look at joining two tables on a database side, we always have this concept of left outer join, right outer join, inner join. Now we spoke about the inner join when we are talking about join between these two tables, right? This will be an inner join, like order ID and order ID. So go back to the Venn diagrams or the things that you learned in maths in school. So you have unions like two circles, you get the entire data from them. Intersection, which is nothing but your inner join. Then you have left outer and right outer, right? So union is nothing but your merge, right? And then merge is like it gets you data from both the tables, provided both the tables have the same metadata. So that is in union. So using query transformation, you can get a common data, a common record set that is present between both the tables. So that is your intersection. Then if you want a left outer join or a right outer join, you need to identify which will be your left outer source. So in our case here, orders is my left outer source. So I get all the data from orders and equivalent data from order details. Or if you want to make order details as a left outer source, then you will get all the records from your left outer table and its equivalent data from your right outer table. Right, so you need to get a clarity on this one, and in the drop down, if you click on this one, you'll see the table names, both the table names. You can choose one, and then here also you can just propose an inner join. So you don't have a right outer join because there is an option for you to switch the table. So let us say orders is my left outer table, and I am trying to do a left outer join, which means orders in my left. Now if you want to do a right outer join, instead of going and choosing an option right outer, I'll switch order details to be my left outer table and orders to be my right outer table. Alright, so and join condition, you just go to the from tab, copy it, copy it from the where tab, and you can just give the join condition there. So it shows you the graphical representation based on the join that you select. It is getting the data from order details completely, which is on your left table, and then the relevant data from the orders table. So that is your left outer join as your order details as your left table. Okay, so this is how you can do left outer join, right outer join, and if you want to look at the code that the system will generate, you can see the bottom from class and understand what kind of code it is getting generated. Right? So this allows you to choose the tables that are in your input source or schema in. Then it allows you to choose which kind of join that you are planning to make, and then it allows you to choose if you are trying to do an inner join or an outer join or left outer join or a right outer join. I think we have a question. Yeah, Chandra, the reason why we have the codes here, it is generated by the system itself, because if there is an underscore between the two table names or the characters between the table name, then system will generally ignore that. So if I remove this, probably orders will be considered as a keyword. Right, so that is the reason why system will generate these single quotes to make sure that this is one single word.
Oh, okay, fine, thank you.
Okay, so if not, the system might consider, let us say if I have something like a select table, right, and because I'm trying to select some values from that, if I end up naming that table as select table, so if I just try to type it in the SQL, so select table will be considered as a keyword. Right, select is one keyword and table is another keyword of Oracle or SQL or any native SQL of database. Right, so to avoid such kind of confusions, whenever you are using some table names which has a keyword in it, or if there is a space between two words, it will try to put a double quotes concealing that as a single character.
Okay, Rakesh, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Right, next, where we have seen this, we can join two different tables, and using one condition, or you can use and condition and you can join multiple on multiple conditions. Like when you use an and, it says that condition 1 and condition 2 and condition 3 should be satisfied. Or if you have a situation where you can go for either A or B, you can use an or condition here. So the keywords that you type here get highlighted in a blue color, so that so Chandra, for you, see, orders is getting highlighted, but this codes, right? So this is keeping that as a single string, right? So that is the reason why system itself generates this one, and this is what we do in where condition. So if you want to call some functions, like when you are trying to do some where region is null, and let us say our region is not null, and if it has some, or region is equal to USA, and you want to apply some L trims and R trims on the blank, preceding and succeeding blank spaces, you can call the functions or utilize any kind of the functions in this one too. And next option that you have is a group by on the data.
Rakesh,
Right? Yep.
shall we write, manually left or right to join in where class?
You can write, but you are what we are actually trying to do by this is like you are avoiding the pre-built configuration in the system, and you are redirecting the system to do the same thing. So generally we kind of avoid such situations and always look for the built-in approaches or built-in templates that will actually, so let us say if I have to write a case statement and you have to write a case statement, I might write that in 30 lines and you might write it in only 10 lines. So your code is more optimized than me. And when I run, my job or my case statement will take 5 minutes, whereas your case statement will just run in 3 minutes, right? So the system has some default, optimized procedures that are available, so you can actually utilize them rather than writing our own statements.
Okay, Rakesh. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So next one is group by. So how does a group by work? So let us say I am trying to, I have like a chunk of records and I want to do a quick search within that. So in that, how will I search? So what is the category or what is the criteria on which I can do a quick search between that? So I have to do a group by on the data, like put them in different buckets or based on one category, and then I can do a quick search within the bucket so that I can identify that. So group by managers, group by employee numbers, or group by the entire data to identify the duplicates. Alright. So you want to do a group by, so you can select all the columns that are from your schema in and drag and drop them into your group by. So it is just a drag and drop. Alright. So you can pull whatever the columns that are displayed in the output to the group by, and if you are not using any column that is not displayed in the schema out, and a column, let us say ship name is, or a numeric discount is present in uh, the schema out, and you are not utilizing that in your group by column, so make sure you use the aggregate functions, minimum of, maximum of, sum of, because that makes sense, right? So when I am doing a group by of or sales by a particular department and I want to see the revenue, so what I will do a sum of revenue on that one. So that sum of revenue will give me, right, because I exclude it from group by, and then I will do a sum of revenue on that one. Just a second, guys. All right. So when I want to do Sorry, just got lost. Okay, when you want to understand like what is your sales by a particular category on your supermarket, so what you will do is like you will put that category in group by, right? It'll let it be beverages which has like so from sodas to alcohol. So what you can do is you can put that in a group by so that on this entire beverages, what is my sales? So you don't put that sales column in the group by, but you put it in the output and you will give the maximum of or the minimum of this one or average of this one. So if you don't use any column in the group by, you just make sure that if that column is used in the output schema, you just use an aggregate function for that one. Right, so that is group by, where you want to put data into bundles. Then if you want to the output to be sorted by a particular column, so let us say you want to create an index on the data, so you can generate a row number and automatically it will be sorted as it gets generated. But apart from that, if you want to provide like sort by region or sort by order ID or sort by employee ID, you can just select that column, drag and drop it into the sort tab, and then you can choose what kind of order by you want to make. Is that an ascending order or you want to do a descending order? Right, so then what will the system do in the backend? It will try to take the first record of the table or first record of the input data set, and it will try to compare with all the remaining sets, and it will see if there is any if based on what you select in the order by, if it is ascending or descending. So based on what you select, it will act accordingly and it will place the other record above it or below it so that you get the sorted output as an sorted data as an output. Right, so this actually consumes some space on the RAM, right? So if you look at joins between two tables or multiple tables, so let us say I'm trying to join 10 tables. What will happen? Just go back to the first basic thing that we have seen. Right, I gave you a very basic picture like what exactly happens in the backend. Right, so everything is pushed onto your system cache. Nothing is residing on your data services. Everything is pushed onto your system cache. And one second, let me check if I have those diagram somewhere. No, I guess. Right. So as I told you in the beginning, BPDM cannot have a single record saved on it. So what will happen? Everything will be pushed onto your system cache, and this system cache will be overdumped, right? Or like at least like it will be maximum utilized in a maximum manner. So I'm trying to join 3 tables with 1000 records, so 1000 records each. So all the 1000 records will go and sit in your system cache, and iteration between first table to second table and second table to third table, which means 1000 into 1000 into 1000 times records will be generated, and the output also will be generated in your system cache, and then it gets flushed out. So now when you are trying to do those kind of complex operations on your system, right, so it will consume a lot of system resources. So it might not be directly your system RAM, but it will go and occupy your job server space or backend threads on which it is running, right? So if you talk about a server, there are different attributes that you need to keep in mind when you are running your jobs, right? Not only, optimized code. So let us say I write 100% optimized code and I want to, run my job pretty late. So if I have bad RAM on the system, right, I don't have enough space on my system, then definitely my job will take a lot of time to run. So it is your hardware and your optimization skills on the code that will help you to write a better code, right? So for you to do an optimization, you just need to select which is the best option for you to do when you are trying to do some joins. So when I started my career on data services, I did a very bad thing. Like I got 10 tables to join and each table has some 1000 records or so. So what I did was I selected all the 10 tables and then I used a query transformation and I wrote a join condition saying that table A dot or table 1 dot field 1 is equal to table 2 dot field 2, and table 2 dot field 2 is equal to table 3 dot 3, because syntactically it is correct, right? But since the volume of data is huge on each of these 10 tables, every time I ran the job, the system crashed, right? Unknowingly, I did that mistake in my first project, and then I kind of, thought to optimize this. So instead of doing in one single query transformation, what I did was I took the 10 tables, then I used query 1, and using query 1, I joined table 1 and table 2. I took the output and joined with table 3. Then I took the output with another query transformation, joined it with table 4, right, to show it on data services. So I joined these two tables, then I went ahead and I'm just showing it as a dummy purpose. Probably this might not work, but yeah, I'm not going to execute this, but just showing you. Alright, so then I take the customer table as an input, make as source, add one more query transformation, join this, and here I joined with customer ID from customer table is equal to customer ID from my orders demo table. So it is not in the right place, it should be in the where tab. I kept on joining like this for all the 10 tables, and I ran the job. This time luckily the system did not crash, but it ran forever, though it is optimized. Then, data services can do everything technically or syntactically, but it is how good you choose to do that, because though you can do everything in one single data flow, it's always good that you have a table where your system cache will be flushed into that one, and then use this table as an input in subsequent data flows and create another data flow. So it is how elaborated you go and create your job, that better your performance will be. Right, it is completely opposite to your coding standards. You write a short and crisp code and that is running fast, then that is good. But in data services, you try not to do everything within single data flow, but try to categorize your activities and do it in subsequent data flows to improve your performance. So on the performance note, right, there is one built-in tab that is given by data services, like advanced tab, which allows all the resource consuming activities to run as a separate process or as a separate thread to improve the performance. Right? This is taken care by the system, but still we will not write a bad code, or we will not write or learn the bad standards as a part of this training. Though you have a backend remedy, but when you learn it in a better way, that you go and deliver good product to the customers. But when you are trying to do a distinct on huge volume of data, and let us say that is a mandatory activity and your job is running for 5 minutes, now you want to cut that down to 3 minutes, you can go and check this checkbox, like run this as a separate process. So at the back end of your server, you'll have your threads and processes and everything running. So when executing this task, this will be tagged to a separate process which is supported by multiple threads in order to run fast. Right, so that will speed up your that will not do a miracle, definitely for sure, but that will definitely reduce your runtime from 10 minutes to 5 minutes or 5 minutes to 3 minutes respectively. Right. Again, when you are trying to do a group by, right, how does a group by work? It will go and check for the entire data set to make sure if it is having a replica or a similar record or a record that matches that category. So which means if you have 100 records, 100 into 100 minus 1 iterations will happen on your system cache. So you want to capture that as a separate process. You can check this one to improve your performance. And also joins, when you are doing complex joins between multiple tables or just between two tables, you are trying to join between 5 or 6 columns and you want everything to be validated. So it goes through multiple loops, right? And remember, if you are dealing with 10,000 records, 20,000 records, your system will really not bother you if you have good RAM, like a minimum of 32 GB RAM that we generally propose for the projects. Right, so the system will really not bother you for your performance, but if you are especially dealing with huge volume of data, make a point that you will check these things, right, to ensure that your system will run fast if you are working on these activities. Right, so that is what you get in the advanced tab of query transformation. And next one is the find tab. So if you want to do a quick search on the word ID, where exactly it is present, it will give you in both the schemas, right, input, output. You can do a specific search to input, or you can do a specific search to output, or both the schemas. And element types. So if you look at this one, this is the schema, right, what we call as output structure. Or if you are working with the nested structure, NRDM's XML schemas, you can find between them. You can find on functions, all schemas, unmapped columns, primary keys, all mapped columns, simple, which is a direct mapping from source, simple primary key, simple error primary key, all simples, complex primary keys, complex errors, right? Each and every type of column. So you go and select all types. And you can also specify where exactly you want to search, right? So you want to search on the name. So remember, I'll just take you to the screen here where you will find. So this is the name of the column. So you don't see any header here, but this is the name of the column. That is properties. Next one is description. So this is the description of your column. Then type is nothing but your data type and their length. In the mapping tab, which is your first tab, in the where condition, this is your where. From tab, you can do a search from the from tab. You cannot search anything because select is like you check it or uncheck it, right? So you see outer join. This is something that is copied from the 3.x version, but not removed in 4x. But you don't have this tab here. You have the functionality embedded within from tab itself. Right, group by, order by are all properties. Now, if you do a quick find on ID, so it will show you all the columns that has the word ID in it, right? And it also highlights on the schema in and on the schema out. It will be highlighted, and that will give you a quick search. Right now, your job is done and everything is done. Now, the customer says that, okay, for this column, you need to multiply from this or concatenate with this. So what you can do is you can do a quick search, right? Go and do a quick search. Now, if you want to do a quick find and replace, so let us say you commented so many things, right, just for your test purpose. So you want to uncomment all those things. So I want to replace hash with nothing, right, which means I remove the comment on my output schema. And you can go and specifically say where exactly you want to remove that comments, or on all the columns you can go and specify and just click on replace all, right? It will show you where exactly it is replaced. Now you go over here and see the comments that we have kept for inner join, and this one is removed, right? So that is a find and replace. Or if you want to change the name of the column from identity, right? So you just specifically tell it is name, because if you select everywhere, it will change here, it will go and change in the where clause, it will change in the order by, and you will run into errors. So specifically say where exactly you want to replace and click on replace all. So now you see your name is only modified in the output schema, right? Not in your where tab. It still remains same, right? But only in your output schema you can modify this. So you can go and select and say like what you want to find and what you want to do a quick replace. But yeah, just pretty well make sure that you know in which area you are doing a find and replace, because if you do it in a wrong way, it will end up into multiple results and you have to go and search for your error on each and every column, because this does a find and replace for the entire query transformation, right? So wherever you can modify, that will be affected. So just make sure you are like doing a right find and replace, but don't, my recommendation will be like, don't do it unless and until you really mean it, or you know where exactly you're trying to do, right? So these are the different options that we get in a query transformation. And now by now I think you guys can understand why query transformation is the most powerful transformation out of all the transformations, because the rest of the transformation, they will just perform whatever they are meant for. For example, validation will do validations, case will do case, merge will do merge. But query transformation, it is kind of an open transformation where you can do n number of things, and everything points to your real-time business scenarios, right? So selecting required columns from the source, or selecting required records from the source, or selecting distinct records from the source, and you want to define how an output column is populated. Like it can be an if then else statement, decode statement, hard code statement, or a concatenation, right? You can do a sort on the data by doing an order by and provide a sorted output to the customers, or you can improve the performance with the help of advanced tab, or you can do a left outer or a right outer from the from tab, and you can do a group by on your data on a particular group of columns and give the desired output. So query transformation has n number of scenarios, and if you look at any existing projects, if you get a chance in your organization, just open any existing BODS project or any job, and you see 99% the user transformation will be query, because this works in different scenarios. Like you want to join two tables, or you want to apply some business rules, you want to perform some validations, you want to perform some functions on the data. So all these scenarios you will be using the query transformation. So this is about the query transformation. I recommend you guys to put a lot of research or work around scenarios on the query transformation, because this is the most useful transformation when compared to the other transformations in your data services. Alright, so we'll end up today with the query, and tomorrow we'll look at the remaining transformations. So if you guys have any questions on case, merge, and query, you can go ahead and ask your questions. Yeah, Adil, we can schedule the jobs in data services. We have a scheduler built in data services. So you can do a schedule on your jobs. So generally on SAP side, or in the previous versions, that used to be a limitation on data services where you cannot do an event-based scheduler, which means once your job one is done, you want to trigger a job 2. So that was a limitation before, but now you have multiple techniques and multiple tools within data services that can allow you to do a scheduling on an event basis, and also you can go ahead and schedule your job to run at 10 a.m. every day, 10:30 a.m. every day, or let your job run 5 times a day within a particular time interval. So you can do all those things, and we'll be talking about that a bit later. Yeah. Or you can expose your jobs to the third-party schedulers like Autosys and execute your jobs through them as well. Yeah. So the question from Adil is, can we divide when to extract, when to do extractions, validations, and what happens when the data changes? Yeah, we can actually, or it is a recommended or a best process to have your job divided when you build it, so that you do a separate job for extraction, then you do a separate I don't say a job, but you have a separate data flow for extraction, then you have separate data flow for validation, and separate data flow for enrichment, right? So this is how, or the standards that we'll be learning. Once we understand the tool, we will also look at the methodologies called Aio and Bpdm. Aio stands for all-in-one methodology, which teaches us like how you should go ahead and build your jobs in a non-SAP background or small and medium enterprises, or when you are talking about large projects. The BPDMs will help you to understand how good you can build your projects like on SAP standards. So all these standards, they believe in building the jobs like extraction. Each and every activity has a separate phase in order to improve your performance. So we actually spoke about it, Adil. So we have two types of tables, right? As a template tables and permanent tables. So if you want to convert your template table to a permanent table, you need to select that, right click, and import your table. And once it is imported, right, we also spoke about the differences between a template table and a permanent table. Template table gets dropped and recreated, whereas your permanent table structure cannot be dropped and recreated. Your data gets appended to the permanent table. Like you'll have the historical data in your permanent table. So if you import your table, you can't see your template table under the template tables on your data store, but it will be present under your permanent tables. Alright, so you'll be using the same link, and we are almost half through the training. So I guess you guys are enjoying it, and you guys are learning new things, and I just want you guys to practice on the system so that we can have more questions. We are almost half through the training now. 50% is completed, and going forward we'll try to complicate more and more scenarios and see as we proceed with the training. Alright, so thanks guys, thanks for joining today's session. Take care, and see you soon in tomorrow's session, and I recommend you to practice a lot. Right, till then, take care. Bye for now.